Because, I mean, let's face it, at this point, like, a bottle of this size is pretty much just a smaller vase that you can drink from. Hello, you dirty potters. How are you today? In our last episode of bottle making, we talked about how to make a straight cylinder bottle. That is just a straight cylinder with a choked in top, in which we just slightly curved in the top to make something that looks a little bit like this. It's a very, very basic bottle. But in this episode, we're going to go over how to make that same bottle, but we're going to give it a little bit of a curve, much like this one here. The main difference being that we popped out the body to give it a real full body bottle shape. Now, I could have very easily done this in two of the same video, but I wanted to separate them a little bit because I really wanted to drive in the point that if you haven't seen the video that I made on choking or collaring in certain parts to make a bottle form, to make the top of this bottle, well, you should probably have already seen that by now, because there are two main techniques you're going to need in order to finish off a bottle form much like this. Number one, you should probably already know how to make a bowl form. A bowl form is a thing that teaches you to pop out a body and really push it out to make kind of a self-supporting curvature. And the second one is learning how to choke in or collar in clay, something that you're definitely going to need to make this top portion right here, as the main form of making a bottle is pretty much just making a cylinder and then choking in this top part. But today, we're going to talk about this nice curve right here. You know, a little sexy, nice curve there. But first, let's make our cylinder. I said this in the last video, but I'm going to say it in this video one more time. If you're making a bottle shape, you're probably starting off from something like a cylinder. As you can probably tell, a bottle shape is pretty much just a cylinder that you've curved out a little bit and then morphed in the top or choked it in a little bit. But in the interest of making your job a little bit easier for yourself later on down the road, I heavily suggest you choke this in a tiny bit right after you form or get the shape of cylinder that you want. Imagine this. Imagine that you're trying to make a bottle, which we are. And the very top of your cylinder is flared out way out here. It's going to take all the much more work to take all that clay in and choke it inwards. It makes your job a lot easier if you just have this be short in the first place. This way, instead of trying to choke from way out here, as many beginners tend to pull this way whenever they're pulling a cylinder instead of going in a straight vertical line, it's way easier. Just like keep it right here, choke it in, just this amount right here, and then start working on the inside of your cylinder by putting your hand on the inside. Now, all you really have to do whenever you want to choke the cylinder in is choke it in a little bit more instead of doing it from way out here. It doesn't seem that important, but trust me, if you set yourself up for success like this, it's going to make your day a lot better. In the previous video, we made a cylinder and then we straightened it out just a little bit like this. After we straightened the cylinder out a little bit, then we choked in the top, and that's what made that type of little curve at the very top that most people would consider to be a bottle form. But this time, we're going for a little bit more of a curve on the body itself instead of just the top. So what I want you to do is the same thing that you would do when you're trying to make a bowl. Go ahead, get your water in your fingers, wet the inside just a tiny bit, and start curving your fingers outwards, just like this, on this part of the vessel. Really quick potter tip before you start doing this. Don't push from way down here. What you're aiming for is a nice full body at the midsection right here or the top right here. You don't want this part bowed out too much. That's pretty much just going to make a round shape. You're looking for a natural escalating curve that comes in at the very shoulder of the piece. So you really just want like this part right here and this part right here curved out. Don't start far too low down here. It's just gonna make it round. But going forward, just kind of pretend you're making a bowl at the middle of the cylinder. And slowly release. Potter tip. This is a pretty good form right here. I'm quite satisfied with this. This is a nice curvy body, and now all I really have to do is choke or color in the very top to make this bottle form that we're trying to go for here. That being said, before you start choking or coloring in the top, I heavily suggest you get a sponge or whatever tool you have laying around. I know some people got those like weird squishy ones at the end that like you put on a stick and put down there, but I have enough space to just stick my finger down there, so I'm just gonna do that and get all that moisture out. After you've gotten all the moisture out and you've curved your body just how you like it, you could proceed with making the bottle as we did in the previous episode. Just take your hands and slowly choke this top part of the clay body in. If you're running out of space after you condense or choke in the clay body, you can pull it just a little bit. Don't do too much, but you've pretty much condensed in the clay body, so you have a little bit more to work with now. Stick your fingers back in there to reform it just a bit. There you go. And then you're pretty much going to repeat the process until you get the very top as small as you want it to be. Final Potter tip, because I know they're annoying. The main issue whenever someone's making a bottle usually happens at the very top of the mouth right here. Most people don't know how to control or even out their clay while they're throwing. Some people don't cone up and down well enough, some people don't wedge well enough, or some people just don't know how to throw with even consistency. Because of this, any one of those factors can attribute to something like this. This is just an uneven, wobbly piece of clay at the very top of your clay body. This, as I addressed in previous videos, can very easily be taken care of by taking your pin tool, putting one finger on the inside of your cylinder, take your pin tool and put it on the outside. Remember not to poke straight in, but just let it ride along the body of the clay like this. And once the side of your pin tool and your finger meets, you can slowly lift your finger up, and it'll even out a lot of your clay body. And as a finishing touch, you take your sponge and smooth out the very top very, very gently, and release pressure very slowly, and this will make yourself a nice even top to your bottle. When we're talking about making bigger bottles of this type, we're really talking about making the middle of the body larger than the foot and the top. You've already choked in the top, but at the finishing part of making your cylinder or your bottle, you can very easily take your wooden knife and taper that down while taking the foot off at the same time. This will give it a little bit of a finer look and taper the bottom down a little bit more. Now it looks a tiny bit more curvy down here, but realistically I just kind of tapered off the bottom of the clay. It also saves me a lot of time for the trim. Now I don't have to like trim all that off, it just gets in the way. Let's make one more bottle and play around with it just a little bit for a demo. Well, thank you, Dirty Potters, for joining me today. I really just wanted to show you guys the difference in between this type of bottle, that having kind of a curvy middle section, and this type of bottle right here, which is pretty much just a straight cylinder that has the top curved out. You can probably tell the difference in that one body is far larger than the other, and technically speaking, and I really mean technically, this will hold a little bit more liquid than this will. Because, I mean, let's face it, this is, a big bottle like this is pretty much just a vase you can drink out of. I've been saying the word vase instead of bottle because as I throw it, it kind of looks like a vase. So within recording this video, I've been trying to say let's face it, but I've been saying let's vase it like 10 times. But thank you, Dirty Potters, for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. This is a very simple episode after you learn how to throw a straight cylinder and choke in a vessel. After that, it kind of makes itself. The only thing you need to learn after this point is really to play with those shapes. Pretty soon, I'll probably release a demo video for you guys of me playing with a bunch of different bottle shapes to give you some ideas to go around. But for now, I really want you guys to practice making a straight cylinder, choking in the top, and smoothing out that top with your sponge or metal rib or what have you. After that, then you can start playing with the form and making stuff a little bit like this, where it has a bit more of a curvier middle body. If you guys can get these two steps down, then we can move on to Japanese double hump gourds, and those are where the sexiness lies. But thank you, Dirty Potters, for joining me today. If you'd like to see any of my artwork, the links are always down below. My new website's there, the Instagram, the Facebook fan page, and you guys know if you want to keep up with any of my artwork, you can always click that subscribe button down below. I love your Dirty Potter faces, and I will see you, Dirty Potters, next week.
Got an almost improvisational tone.
But I have enough space to just stick my finger down there, so I'm just gonna do that and get all that moisture out, just like I did with your mom last night.